So, Zach, about those bonus features in DVDs nowadays.
You know, the ones from the 80s have almost no bonus material. Even if they do, it's a trailer and the visual quality is pretty bad. Well, that visual quality is a good reminder of those days. So many new audio and visual appliances were coming out back then. Do you remember the first video deck we bought? We bought it to record one of the Star Wars movies on TV. And remember when that video store opened, we spent hours there, just trying to find a good movie to rent. There weren't that many to choose from back then. I remember renting some really bad ones after reading those back cover taglines. Hey, remember? Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, filmed in 1978. Produced, directed, written, and edited by John DeBello. It was really awful, but for some reason I still remember it pretty well. It had so many sequels, and the original was re-released in '95. The 87-minute-long theatrical release bumped up to a whopping 90 minutes. But that was around the time I joined the Bureau. I never have a chance to see it.
I know, Zach. Once this case is over, we can watch it together.
I bet we can buy a copy on the internet pretty easily.
Picking up from where we left off, speaking of 80s movies, one jewel in the rough springs to mind. Deadly Spawn. Do you remember that one, Zach?
Back in '83, directed by Douglas McCown. Right, it was filmed pretty cheap, but still it was pretty good. The monster design with the mouth crammed full of teeth, I loved it. So many delicious B-movie cliches. Did you know that they made a sequel? But I never got to see the sequel. The rental store didn't have it for some reason. They said the staff for the sequel was totally different from the original. Wonder how the sequel turned out. You know, the monster in that one responded to sound.
Wait, Zach. Sounds a lot like the movie Tremors.
I think that one was back in '89, directed by Ron Underwood. Now that was a great role for Kevin Bacon. Masterpiece.
Zach, that one had sequels like crazy. I remember there was a fourth one. I've only seen the first one, though.
Tremors. I think Fred Ward was in it. You say Fred Ward, and I say Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. That one was back in '85, I think. Directed by Guy Hamilton. Guess Hamilton was aiming to start a series like 007, but it had no sequels. A real shame. Do you remember the martial arts they used in that film? Called Sinanju? The ultimate in martial arts, using no weapons at all. Remo's Master Chun ran across water, remember? And he loved soap operas. Man, that was a good character. He was played by Joel Grey, the best supporting actor in Cabaret. Of course, in Remo, he had so much makeup on you couldn't tell.
Now, Joel Grey's daughter is, of course... That's right, Jennifer Grey. You knew that, right, Zach?
Jennifer Grey. She's in one of my most favorite movies, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, 1986, directed by John Hughes. That one was so 80s.
Zach, you're not the most cheerful guy I know, but you really do like those cheerful movies.
We used to love those teenage movies back then, didn't we? Breakfast Club and Pretty in Pink, St. Elmo's Fire, and Fast Times at Ridgemont High. That last one was in 1982, directed by Amy Heckerling. Now that was an impressive film. You've got Sean Penn in the lead, with Jennifer Jason Leigh and Phoebe Cates. Not to mention Nicolas Cage and Forrest Whitaker were in it too. And the original book and the script were written by Cameron Crowe. How could that not be a great film?
Do you remember, Zach?
When that movie ended, the last words, the end, was from an arcade game. That's right, it was from Missile Command. That stuck in my head for a while. The memories. I feel like I have a lot of movies to catch up on. Let's just hope we can get to the end of this case soon. Then maybe we can catch up on a few.
Give some thought about what movie you want to see next, Zach. I've been thinking about what movie I'd like to watch next, and finally I've made a decision.
It's always hard to narrow it down just to one movie, but I've put a lot of thought into this, and I'm sure you'll agree with me. 1975. Directed by Steven Spielberg himself. The grandfather of panic movies. Set in a small town in Massachusetts. That movie made me stay away from the beach for years. I was always afraid that a hand might come floating up. You know what I'm talking about, right? Yep. It's Jaws. The underwater camera work accompanied by that John Williams music. I'd never been that scared by a movie before. But the best thing about it is that it isn't just another panic movie. The mayor won't close the beach even when there are so many victims. Chief Brody putting the citizens' lives above all else. The film gave a lot of time to the dispute and friction between them. It certainly had a lot of messages for a 2-hour film. That's probably another reason why it was such a record-breaking hit. One of my regrets in life is that I didn't see it at the movie theater. I guess I was still just a child back then. But still, I wanted to taste that terror in real time.
That reminds me, Zach. Did you know this one?
Jaws also appears in another movie that was produced by Spielberg, the second Back to the Future. It was directed by Robert Zemeckis, who later made Forrest Gump. That's also a masterpiece, of course, but we'll discuss that another time. So, the scene where Jaws appears is right after Marty McFly goes 30 years into the future. He passes by a movie theater and is attacked by a holographic shark. Marty is shocked, of course, but looking closer, he sees the words, Jaws Part 19. The director is credited as Steven Spielberg Jr. In reality, there were actually only 4 Jaws movies. It was still a great joke. 30 years from 1985 would be 2015. We'll be there pretty soon.
I wonder what life would be like by then, Zach.